Today, we're going to go over something that I feel mystifies a lot of people, which is the layers panel and understanding layers in Cricut Design Space. Like Marie had said, if you're in my Facebook group called Teach Me Cricut Design Space with Shawn Mosch, I'm an Uber organizer person. I like lists. I like, check this off my to-do list kind of thing. In my real world job, I am big on, I'm part of the team that creates the documentation and training for different aspects of my company's job. So it translated really easily into the Cricut world, because then I just said, okay, well, here's how I break it down into steps in my real job. Just do the same thing with Cricut. So then when you join my group, every once in a while, I'll do a welcome and actually tag the newest members so that you know right where the resources are. And I show you the link to go download my handbooks, which have a lot of the information that we're going over in these classes. So then that's going to be great when you download and read that. You'll be like, oh yeah, I remember Shawn talking about that in the class. So it helps reinforce things when you hear it, you read it, and then in those handbooks, I also link to my videos on YouTube, which you can subscribe and follow. And then you see it in action again. So I like to hit on all the different ways people learn, from listening to seeing to actually doing, because then I even encourage you, like I'm doing right now with my card making tutorial, is to take some of the things you've learned, and I'm showing you the steps of here's what I taught you. Now go and apply it by making this little card. And then you feel accomplished because you were able to achieve the one goal. And it's just a little card. So it's, not like, oh my gosh, I had to go buy $50 worth of vinyl and supplies, just a few sheets of paper and little wins and little successes. And then we build on that. I like to say I have crafting tutorials for every skill level, because I break it down easy for the beginner, but then I build on that for the more advanced people. So now I am going to share my Cricut Design Space screen. Okay. And I have to move my little window that has all of your lovely faces in it. If you have questions, please stop me. I try to go slow, but I do understand that sometimes, some people need it again. So today we're going to go over the layers panel, which is this section on the right. There's a lot of great information hidden in this layers panel. And I say hidden, but it's not really. It's just people don't know to look at it. Think of this, if you're cooking, of looking at the ingredients and nutrition information on your products that you're cooking with. It's in there. It tells you how many carbs and how much sugar is in there, if that's something you need to dial down to. So let's take a look at this. Everything that is on your Design Space canvas is going to show up in your layers panel. And I can click on things like right here. When I click on it in the layers panel, you can see, ooh, I moved it because I clicked too much. There we go. It highlighted the word with. So now I know this layer or line of the layers is talking about that word with. I can see that it's text that I used to create this. It's even telling me the name of the font that I used. So whenever somebody says, oh, I made this project 2 years ago, I want to use the same font, I can't remember what font I used. I'm like, well, if you use text and a font, it'll tell you right there. If you wanted to turn this off, for example, let's say I just wanted to cut the portion that's my name, because the Cricut's only going to cut what I can see right here. So if I wanted to just turn this off, I can click this little eyeball and now it's turned off and hidden and the Cricut will not cut it. So now if I click on this line, I can see that's the Teach Me Cricut Design Space, which is the name of my group. Little plug. I can turn that off. So now all that's left is the Shawn Mosch. Now that's all the Cricut is going to cut. Now, why is that important? Well, for me, sometimes I'm making similar projects over and over again. And for example, when I do at Christmas time, I have 12 nieces and nephews, and I buy them all presents. I make little gift tags. Well, if I cut the batch for one household, and then a different day I'm cutting the batch for a different household, I might turn on and off the corresponding tags. Or this is another good example. This Shawn Mosch that you see here is kind of what I use as my logo for my website. If I wanted to just cut that, I can turn all the other stuff off. But then a lot of times when I'm doing my videos, I will start them off with this full screen showing. So some people say, well, just delete what you don't want. Well, yeah, but if I delete it, I have to put it back later when I do want it. So just turning it on and off is a great way to use your layers panel. Another thing that this is going to do is on each one of these lines, it's going to tell you how this is set up. What's the operation that the Cricut is going to perform? For this, right now, it is set to cut this out of cardstock, out of vinyl, doesn't matter, whatever I put on the cutting mat. If I were to click here and duplicate this, and let's take that duplicate down here. What if I change this so that it's the pen drawing the outline? So now you can see it says pen here. So it's telling me in this layers panel what it's going to do. It's going to draw this with the pen. Okay. You can also select things from the layers panel. If you see right now, when I click over here, it selects everything on the screen because I have this all grouped together. Two ways I can tell that I have all of this grouped together. When I look at the layers panel, it says group right here. And then it lists all of these things under the word group. So that's how I know all of those elements are grouped together. The other way to know is if I look right above, see right here where the group button is grayed out, I can't group anything because it's already grouped. So the only choice I would have is to ungroup. So now you're saying, Shawn, what the heck does group do anyway? Well, let me show you. When I have all of these elements grouped together, I can resize them all together. And let's say I added a little heart in here. I'm going to change the color of that heart just to be fun. And let's say I put it there. Okay, so now if I select everything and say group that heart in with everything else, now when I resize it, the heart stays in the same location in the design, but see how it resizes together with everything else? That's what group does. It also keeps each element on its own layer. And why is that important? Because when I click make it, I want all the stuff that is black to go on one cutting mat and all the stuff that's pink to go as a separate cutting mat. And with group, you can do that. It's making all of your elements work together as a group. Any questions on group for right now? the layers panel is also nice because if I wanted to delete just this heart, if I clicked over here and tried to click on the heart, it's selecting that whole group. But if I select over here from the actual layers panel, I can either turn it off, or I can select that one element. I could duplicate it, just that one element, or I could delete just that one element without ungrouping the entire thing in order to just select the heart. Okay.
Shawn.
Yes.
Good morning. First of all, you are a fabulous teacher, and I'm so happy to be here. But when you had the heart in there and you said it would go on a different mat, I was just a little confused about that.
Well, let's back it up.
Thank you.
No problem. So layers are essentially doing different colors. And when you have things as the same color, the Cricut's smart enough that when you hit make it, it's going to put everything that's the same color on the same cutting mat. So here's what I mean by that. These are our map previews. So you can see it first took everything that's black. So I would load, let's say I was cutting this out of vinyl to put on a sign that I'm making for my teaching. I would cut this out of black. Then I would unload that mat and put pink vinyl in to cut the hearts. Does that answer your question, Denise?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
No problem. Now, one thing I do want to point out, you see how the Cricut rearranged the way I had the words laid out? Because I had Teach Me Cricut Design Space up here, and then I had with Shawn Mosch, and this was all centered perfectly. It rearranged it. It's trying to make things fit in the mathematic way that the Cricut thinks to be best. But what if I didn't want it to do this? Because I was cutting this out of iron-on vinyl, and I want to just pick this all up in one big piece and move it to the cutting, or the project. Here's how we can do that. Below, at the bottom of the layers panel, there are a whole bunch of different functions. And now we're going to dive into those. So this was a good transition. If I select everything that is black and hit attach, okay, so this is a good tip. That heart was a part of the bigger group. So when I hit attach, it also moved that heart to the same grouping. So that's not what we want. So that means I do need to ungroup this. So now I can select just the black things. And now you can see the hearts are up here and they're not a part of this. Now when I hit attach, it didn't change anything here on the screen, but watch this. When I hit make it, it stayed exactly the way I had it centered and positioned. Attach holds your placement and position. So if you want it to cut exactly the way you have it designed out, select everything that's the same color and hit attach. And I can do that same thing with the hearts. So they stay spaced out like this. Because maybe I want to place them and I don't want to have to measure on the shirt to make sure that those are the same distance apart as I have them designed. what I like to do in cases like this, I can click on the layer here, and you can't see this, but I'm holding my shift key down on my keyboard. That allows me to pick a second layer at the same time, holding your shift key. Now, when I click attach and hit make it, you can see that held that placement and position and spacing between those two pink hearts. Okay, that was a good transition right into how to do attach. Now I am going to turn off some of this and get rid of some of this stuff, and we're really good at play. So we went over group and ungroup. That's more about keeping your design together. I use that a lot because there are times that I am designing things and I'm just kind of going how visually it looks. I'm just gonna run through something really quick here. Like say I was making something for one of my cards. I think I did this with a bunch of stars. So, you know, I spent all this time designing it, pretend we spent a lot of time. And then I went, oh my gosh, I wanted this star to be 4 inches. Well, I want my spacing and, you know, the size of these stars to stay exactly proportional to this bigger yellow star. You know, because if I change this to 4 inches, then I have to adjust both of these little stars in relation. But if I go to group and group them all together and just say I wanted this big star to be 4 inches, see how it resized the whole grouping together? It kept everything proportional. So you can, oh, I typed in the wrong, typed in the hip height, not the width. See, but now I can fix that really easy. There. So this is a way you could use the same design over and over again for different projects. For example, let's say your family is going on a vacation together and you need to make shirts for everybody from, you know, the little grandbaby all the way up to Grandpa Bear. That is a variety of sizes, but you want them to all say the same thing. You can create your design that you want, then group the whole design because that allows your layers to stay on their separate colors, group them all together, and then you can resize them for each individual size that you need. Does that make sense? I see some nodding. Okay. The other thing is, if you need to make multiples of this design, because I have it grouped, I can click duplicate and it duplicates the entire design. Duplicate is up here in the upper right corner. You can also duplicate by right-clicking on your design and clicking duplicate. So that's a nice one because if you need to make a bunch of these, it makes it go rapid fire once you have it grouped. I'm big into design one, make it perfect, then I can duplicate it, need to. The other thing you can do, say you need 10 of this exact same design, you can click make it and change this to a 10 right here in number of projects, then hit apply. So now it figured out how many cutting mats you need. Now here's another good, now we're leading right into something else. Okay, so the Cricut likes to space things so that you aren't impeding in this boundary. but I can see that I could probably get a couple more stars in here. So what I'm going to do is take this star and say, move that object to this mat. And now I can place it and kind of squeeze these together. The reason the Cricut didn't squeeze these together is, see how this black line is basically the space it's assigning to the star? It impedes on the space for the star above it. So this is times where a human is smarter than the Cricut, but you can move the objects. Come on, move. There. So now I can get more stars on one cutting mat. So that's also nice because let's say you design this project and you're running to the store this afternoon. You're like, how many sheets of cardstock am I going to need? You can click make it and look at this preview to say, okay, I need a sheet of red, a sheet of orange, and I'll need 2 of yellow to make it. Okay, it gives you a little shopping list. Okay. Any questions on group, ungroup, duplicate? If not, I'm going to ungroup and go into something else. So the next thing I want to show you is Slice. Slice will allow you to cut one thing from another thing. Think of it like a cookie cutter. This is our cookie dough. Yes, it's star-shaped dough. In my imaginary world, it works. This is the shape we want to cut. I am going to take both of these and center them inside of each other. And now down here in the lower right, the very first button under our layers panel is Slice. When I click Slice, it's going to cut the little star from the big star. And when I do that, I end up with a star-shaped kind of frame piece, which is kind of cool. And Karen, you have your hand up. What's your question? You're muted.
Yeah, where did you go to center? You did it so quickly, I didn't see how you did that.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I went to the line tool. So let me do it again. I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller. And because I'm trying to create a frame, I want to make it centered. And I could put it in here and kind of eyeball it, but I want to select both of those pieces and go to align. I can align things to the left, which would do this, which looks kind of weird. I could center them horizontally. I could align them to the right. I could align them to the top. I could.
Thank you, that helps.
Yes. And then center is the one I use the most because it perfectly centers them on top of each other. And then when you hit Slice, it'll cut one from the other.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Tracy, you got your hand up and you're muted.
Yeah, actually, I'm Karen on Tracy's computer.
Okay.
My slice button is not hot, so I missed something that you did, I think.
Okay, so you have to have 2 things selected in order for Slice to work. So here is something I always say to do when you want to slice.
Okay.
Look, you have your one element and we're duplicating it to make a second in this case.
Okay.
So when I select everything, look at your layers panel. See right
Okay,
here on my layers panel, I have 1, 2 things selected.
okay, I've got that.
Okay, so your slice still isn't turning
Well,
out.
like yours, oh, wait, okay, I think I did. So if it says slice result, that's it, right?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yep, the 2 items is something that gets people a lot. And let me show you a good example of that. I am going to go find an image. Let's just browse all of our images. So let's say you wanted to put somebody's name through here. I'm thinking Mother's Day already, so people say, oh, I'm just gonna slice the word mom right out of the donut. That'll look kind of cool. So if I select everything, you'll see slice does not turn on. Well, let's look at our layers panel. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things selected. I can tell these 6 things are selected because the gray for the background of that layer is darker than the ones down here. So we can't slice this right now. But what if we click on just the donut and ungrouped it? Because the first time we were looking at it, it was looking at things as a full grouping. So now if I select the mom and hold my shift key and just pick the pink layer, now I can slice. So you have to slice it down by layers. So now what I would want is the word mom and that part of the donut and slice. So it's harder because you got to do it in sections. But you can get there. Okay, so now if I take, oh, you know what? I'm going to do it better. Let's do it this way, because this is going to show up better. Ooh, what? The O is in the center. Oh, that's going to be cute. Kind of like the O, the center is the O. Okay, if this is really popular at Mother's Day, people take this offset and they offset the word with that blue outline, and then we go apply. I'm going to turn off the mom because I don't even want to deal with that. I want to cut the offset is what I'm going to cut this time, because I think that's going to make a crisper look. So I cannot just select everything here because again, I have too many layers. Okay.
I have a question. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. Where do you hit the offset again? Oh, I see it right there.
Offset right up here. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, we went over
Sorry.
that in a different lesson, so that's why I went faster through it today.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep. So if I ungroup this to make all of these individual layers, and I go the offset and the pink, and I slice. And I do. So these 2 slice results, I'm going to weld them back together so that they're one piece. There we go. And now I'm going to slice those 2 pieces. Now I'm going to get rid of this offset mom, get rid of that.
What time are we leaving? What time?
I don't know how long it takes to get to this place.
Last night I checked and it was an hour. Let me see.
Oops, sorry. I clicked the wrong thing. I got a little clicky happy, sorry there.
Give us time to eat lunch.
1:11.
I think I got muted. Bring this to the front. And now I'm going to start bringing all these other things to the front. This is kind of cute, actually. So now it's like mom with sprinkles. So you see how I sliced that offset out of the two layers? I had to ungroup the donut to first be able to break it down into layers. I see a lot of people actually using the same theory at Mother's Day. No, wrong button. This is a really cute Mother's Day project. People use the word mom, and then they use the text called I love glitter and type in a child's name. If I could spell today. Okay. So this is going to turn into something swirly and really cute that I'm going to change the color of. And with, like we talked about last week with the text and fonts, there are some that have these fun little swirls and swooshes called glyphs on the end of them. So that adds that little swish. And I'm going to weld that together so it's all joined together. Okay. So now if I add an offset to this, I'm going to turn off the bath using my layers panel, select everything, and slice. It's thinking. Okay, so now let's look at this layers panel. This first one, you can see the preview says mom. And if your eyes are better than mine, you can probably see that there's something sliced out of it. So that's the piece we want to keep. So this stuff, that's the inner guts that we sliced away, we actually want to delete. We're going to delete that one too. And that one too. So see how it cut the hole? Slice is about cutting. It cut a hole in the word mom. So now when I turn Beth back on, it's going through the mom. Is that kind of cool?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
very.
Okay, so I use Splice a lot for making kind of frame type shapes. I do a lot of card making and scrapbooking. So if you have an image or like for scrapbooking, you might be kind of making a frame around a picture. So then I would be inserting like a rectangle usually. And then making a second one. And then when I align those to the center, I can then slice one from the other and I have kind of a frame piece.
I needed that for my crop last weekend.
I use this all the time. Actually, I have one file in Design Space that's kind of, I've made my most typical like 4x6, 4x4 frames, and I just save them all in there. So yeah, that's slice. Slice is for cutting. Biggest thing to remember with slice is the number 2. If your slice does not light up, look at your layers panel and verify you only have 2 things selected. Okay? Any questions on slice?
No.
Awesome. We're going to move on to weld. I did use weld for a second when I was doing this one, but let's do it again. You tell I'm on a theme. When I get stuck on a theme, that's all I can think of for my demos. So like if you take a Cricut class with me around Christmas time, everything's going to be a Christmas example. Right now, it's Mother's Day. Okay, so I went to the text button and typed up the word mother. I'm going to change this to a different color just so we can all see it better. Do you see the little lines like between the M and the O, between the T or the O and the T, between the T and the H, that little tiny line right there where they're connecting? So right now, if I were to cut this, the Cricut's going to cut every place you see that black line. So the M is actually going to cut separate from the O. They're going to be right close to each other, but they're going to be individual letters. If I want this to cut all as one connected word and get rid of those places where it's touching or overlapping, I click the weld button. See how those lines went away? Those connecting pieces, like right here. One other thing that happened was this E filled in. So this is a glitch in Cricut Design Space, but here's how you fix it. This is what I have found works really good. If I take this whole thing and ungroup it, so these are individual letters, and I select these letters and weld them, and then select just these last 2 and weld them. Now, if I zoom in here, actually, I can kind of see this edge of the H is kind of close to the center of that E. That's why it filled in. So if I just take this and scooch it just a hair, and now I weld it all together. See how it didn't fill in? So if you ever see the center of one of your letters fill in, go back, weld everything that's to, or ungroup, weld everything that's to the left of where it filled in, and then do the right. And then you can narrow in on where it filled in to kind of look for the problem and fix it. So this is another place to use ungroup. Because when I welded it as a full word, it caused me a problem. But when I ungrouped them to individual layers, it allowed me to work. And Karen, I believe you said, is using Tracy's computer. Did I get it right? You're muted.
Okay, sorry, this is my first time ever doing Zoom call things.
That's okay.
How did you ungroup? So I know I'm doing something again, but my ungroup is not hot.
I'm good. Type in another one. Well, that's kind of a pretty font for my name. So what I did is I went, remember when we were talking about group?
Right.
Up here.
But how did you ungroup once you welded? Can you ungroup once you weld?
No, I ungrouped before I welded.
Oh, okay. So I must have been looking down and not seeing that because I'm like, I welded and then I'm like, oh, can I ungroup that to do what you were doing? But I can't. You
Right.
just start.
So that was one point I wanted to bring up when I talked about weld. Once you weld, you cannot unweld. So weld is a one and done. Like you better have everything exactly like you want it. There's no unweld.
So it might be a good practice, especially for beginning, to duplicate and weld on one, and then you have the to go back to if.
Yep, a lot of people do that. Like, okay, I like this. I'm going to duplicate this and put it over here. And then they go weld. And that one actually worked. But if it would have filled in like this little loop-de-loop, I could either go backwards immediately with my undo button or say, well, to heck with, I'll just ungroup from this one.
Okay, so we'll undo unweld.
Undo will unweld because I have not saved.
Okay, all right.
So
Okay,
it's
thank
good.
you.
Yep. But like once you've saved, you can't unweld.
You're toast if you want to change.
Right.
Okay.
Immediately, if you notice, oh, that didn't work, you can right away go unweld and you're fine.
Okay,
Or
thank you.
not unweld, undo.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so that covers splice and weld. Group, ungroup. Now we're going to look at attach. I use attach a lot for card making. And let's say I was making a card like this. Whoops, let's make it a rectangle. I'm just eyeballing some dimensions here. And I wanted the Cricut to put a score line in. So I went to shapes and inserted my score line. So I'm going to make my score line 4 inches so that matches the height of my card. If I select both of these and say align to center them, now that score line is perfectly centered. Now, what if right now I decide, well, that's not the right dimensions for my card. I wanted a different dimension, but I want to hold that placement and position of that score line. I can go attach because attach holds placement and position. And now I can change this to be a totally different size card. And see how it's still keeping that score line perfectly centered in relationship to the card. So attach holds placement and position. I use it for attaching score lines, attaching a written sentiment to a card is another good time to use attach. Any questions on attach? Betty?
Yes, well, how is that different than grouping something and then resizing the whole thing?
Okay, so let's do this. It's easier to show this one. You can make these 2 different colors. Okay, so if I group these, I can resize them. If I attach, it forces them to the same layer or color.
Okay, okay,
So now I lose that individual color thing
okay.
because I attach them to each other. So there's the difference.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is flatten. The only time you ever want to use flatten is if you want to do a print then cut project. You want to send it to your home printer, have it print out your design. And actually, I'm going to find a different image because this one's pretty basic. I'm going to go with another one of my favorite topics, Mickey Mouse. I'm a big Disney fan, so if you are also a Disney fan, you will find I have a lot of Disney crafting projects that I do. So we can have some fun with that. Oh, I got a cute idea. What if I ungroup this? I want to put Minnie and Mickey on a heart. They're in love. Oh. Okay, so I want this to be my whole design. And I don't have time to run to the store and buy however many different colors of vinyl, and I can't even find some flesh tone vinyl in the store. You can order it online at mycraftsource.com. Use coupon code Shawn Mosch at checkout to save 5%. But you know, I need this tomorrow, and I don't have time to go and buy all the vinyl. But I do have some printable iron-on heat transfer sheets. So if I select everything and hit flatten, and actually I'm going to undo that for a second and have you look at the layers panel. I select everything. Look at the layers panel. See how I have like a whole ton of layers selected? And they all say basic cut, right? So I hit flatten, watch what happens. It's all one layer now. It says here, print then cut. So it transformed that into individual cut layers into one layer. So now when I hit make it, it's gonna show me this preview. This is how it will actually print from my home printer. And that's gonna come back and just cut around the outer edge with the Cricut. I do have a video on print then cut on my YouTube channel that you can watch the whole process happen. But just know, if you're asking other people questions, there's so many times I see people say, oh, flatten it. And that puts it, but flatten turns it to a print then cut. So if you do not want to do print then cut, you never need to use flatten. Okay. We have one more topic I was going to hit on. If we do not get through it, we will build on it next week because it's a big one. The last button I want to talk about is contour. Contour allows you to hide sections. And there's a really good image I use a lot for this. And I'm pretty sure it's free. Here it is. This is also how you can create layers. So if you start off with a black and white image like this, but you want to cut this outer shape that's black right now out of one color of vinyl. Let's say we're going to cut this out of brown. But I want these inner petals to be cut out of yellow. I can right click on this and go duplicate. So I've created a second layer that I'm going to make yellow. And now I'm going to go into my contour button, which is in the lower right corner. That's going to pop up a whole new window. Contour, some people really struggle with grasping the concept, but once you get it, it unlocks so much. So when I kind of start to hover, do you see how the outside of that whole piece is changing colors? It's lighter, it's darker, it's lighter, it's darker. So if I click that, see how it turned off that outer edge piece and turned on those centers? So now I can layer that right inside there to make that a 2-layered design. This contour allows you to really alter different things. Ooh, this is a good one too. So this one says mom inside, but maybe you use the term mum. So you want to type up the word mom and slice it out of this center. Well, first you need to get rid of the word mom, right? So if I use contour, I can go in here and click on the word mom. And I also have to click on these little inner loops of it. So now it's a solid sunflower. Now I could take the text and type up mom. All of that and slice. If I was doing for a real project, I would have centered it better, but there you go. First, I needed to fill that word that was there. That what didn't I use? Using contour. So you can contour out different. I use this all the time to create layers, which I will actually show you next week when we talk about uploading images.